Underneath the Vatican is a fountain. It resembles the Fountain of Youth, but it's not. It was there before they built St. Peter's Cathedral. Supposedly they built it on top of the fountain. All the rumors you hear about devil worshipping inside the Vatican are based around this fountain. The fountain is an entrance into a mystical prison. It's the Pope's duty and all the other cardinals as well to maintain that entrance stays sealed. According to the inscriptions on the fountain, it is the prison made to contain the first person that was ever possessed by the Dark One. The sages at that time had never dealt with such evil, but they realized as long as the woman was alive, the dark entity within her was bound to her and could not jump into another body to infect anyone else. So they imprisoned her and the entity in a labyrinth underground and sealed it with a fountain that both maintained the immortality of the woman and bound the dark entity into a spectre-like form. The fountain is the fountain of youth for her. The entity has become known as Cthulhu. According to the inscription, she was the mother of Lamech of the Bible. Son of Lamech was Pan. To protect the fountain and maintain the sealed door, a church was built on top of it, and the main duty of the Vatican has always been as guardians of that fountain. I would also like to add that this information correlates to biblical scriptures describing the atrocities of the great-grandson of Cain, Lamech, though the details are slightly different. Lamech was the son and was the father, killed by the mother's hands defending her Rasham son from God's decree of the Rasham's deaths at the hands of their fathers. Also the sentence passed down to Lamech was the same amount of time that Enoch described the punishment on the Nephilim be sentenced to, 70 generations. The rituals that go on underneath are to maintain the seal and keep the woman alive so the evil cannot escape again. It's the same evil taint that caused Eve to eat from the fruit, the same evil that tainted heaven and caused the rebellion, the same evil that tainted God and caused him to flood the earth. The adversary is the one who ordered Lamech to forge the stones of power that created the taint. This taint and its ability is why God's presence has been gone for so long. And he has waited ever since. For me to come along. With my knowledge of magic and of the secrets of history, I was able to forge the anti-stone amulet that counters the effect of the power that created that taint and to resist the taint itself. Lamech, Malki, Utu, the necromancer lord, all the same person. Utu was the first noble sage who went to the village where Lamech's mother lived. They had received a message that a great wrong had been done there, so they dispatched Utu, who was one of the 9 sages of the council, to assess the situation. He arrived to find all 40 people in the village dead in the village square as they were eating supper. Only one person was alive in the town, Lamech's mother, who said a mist-like fog came in the night and killed everyone. He took her to the central kingdom, Megiddo, for protection, but along the way found a witness who told him she had killed everyone by poisoning their dinner. She was the reason they had called the sage, because she had murdered and dismembered her husband, Earl. He then bound her and took her before the sages, who used their magic and discovered she was inhabited by a dark shadow of an entity they had never seen nor had that ever encountered the hate and evil that it was comprised of. So they sealed it underground in a labyrinth along with the mother. This entity is the source of the Morrigan's duality. The old crone is the darkness inhabiting another form. Needless to say, the labyrinth didn't work. They found that out when Uta became the demiurge. The taint had possessed him on the way back with the woman. In Uta the taint became powerful, and under its instruction Uta forged the stones of power and wages war upon the old world of magic. Under the possession of the darkness, Uta became Lamech or Malki, one of the chief demons of possession, and who is well known to the priests of Catholic exorcisms. However, I do not wish to demonize him, for he was my mentor and teacher in the ways of necromancy. He had possessed me for well over a year and a half and was more of a help than a hindrance. In fact, while I had sought an exorcism because of other possessing demons that were causing problems, I had requested that the demon known as Lamech be allowed to remain, for his help in many different aspects other than necromancy had become vital in me becoming the virtuous individual I am today. Once he had died and became free of the taint's influence, he resumed his honorable ways and does still to this day. But on with the tale. This was all a distraction. The elves knew of the coming disaster and tried to warn the rest, but the relentless sieges of Malki and his army of demons were relentless and would not allow them to seek refuge and kept them focused on war. When the deluge came right after their victory against him by the hand of his own son Marduk, the old world became washed away along with most of those of that era. That was the distraction intended by the real enemy behind this tale, the one who crafted the taint. The one who existed in the not too far future, who knew of the coming disaster from their own legends. He sealed the stones of power away and were kept safe because all who knew of them and the art of sorcery drowned that day, washing the old world out of the way to make way for his new world. When his time came, he guided himself into India after the second attempt to have him killed by the king of Ashur failed. He went to India where the stones were hidden and uncovered them, and returned to Assyria with the power to conquer it and every other nation in the known world at that time. Sargon's rule was not questioned even by countries across the globe. His stone were the fear that made him conqueror of the world, as well as existence. Across time nations and kingdoms rose and fell by his will, and the other 7 sages of the council who he resurrected as wraiths like on Lord of the Rings, the 7 archons. Until the day he crossed me, not only an incarnation of him but a past life as well. For one day I will become Sargon. It is my book and my knowledge that began his quest for power. So to interfere with me in any way endangers his rise to power, and by decree of the stones nothing can stop him from achieving that. Not even himself, which led to his death. Now this tale contradicts most known historical references to Sargon of Akkad. But this specific character in history and his records have been altered, and the archaeological community is aware of this. They are not sure of the true history during that era, but if you cross-reference other cultures' legends, especially that of Hindu culture, in the books of Krishna, which was written around the time of Sargon's reign, you'll find the Battle of the 10 Kings. In it there are different names of tribes who answered the Mahavishnu's call to rebel against Sudra. You will find a specific tribe known as the Druhine, which was the name of the original Celtic Druids' belief of their deity the sun god, from whom all Celtic cultures derived from. So we have cultures from across the world all meeting in one place to revolt against a once benevolent king who became drunk with power by their records, and in that era which it was written one figure fits that role in the world at that time: Sargon, who was overthrown by his son in a revolt. As I understand it, the history of Sargon was stricken from record by his son, and thus dubbed him to be known only as the Scorpion King. Taint is a word used to describe something that contaminates and causes something to become impure or desecrated, and is the best phrase to use to describe what that dark manifestation of evil's essence gathered and pooled together and given life. Surely if you had ever encountered it you would understand. It is not a demon, or a fallen angel, nor is it a wrathful spirit, for it has never lived. It is a living shadow, that has a form comprised of what a person's mind conceives as evil, and amplifies that concept beyond what your mind can grasp, as that concept suddenly takes physical form when you try to gaze upon it. Your mind's image of what you understand and define as evil twists within the shadow and begins to take form. The screams of fear, the shouts of hatred, the cries of suffering, all becomes suddenly a shadowy figure outlined in darkness, and then takes the shape and form of that which causes those screams of fear. It becomes the maniac that shouts in hatred. The figure of that which you connect as that which could cause such suffering, that is your concept of evil, appears before you, living, breathing and staring you straight in the face. It taints all memories and ideas of hope, righteousness and virtue. That is a small description of what it is. It is the real life it. The shadow wolf Fenrir. For that connection is the reason they say my father was a jackal and mother a human, because of my relation by blood to Fenrir, the personification of evil, the primordial chaos who existed before creation formed, and the source of my life, stream and soul. But that being lies behind the door of the Pagewani temple's forbidden door. Not to be confused with Cthulhu under the Vatican, or as the Hindu texts refer to us as Kali and Mahakala.